Hello and welcome back to the Rugby Connection. This week, round 3 of the Six Nations. France absolutely dominant in Scotland. England hold their own against Wales, and Ireland beat a less numbered Italy, shall we say. Lads, how are we getting on?
Who wants to go first? It's a bit awkward there. I'll go first. I'm all right. Yeah, big win yesterday. Quite tight. It was. I did sort of have my heart in my mouth towards the end of it, but I think big win gets us back on track and hopefully gives us just a little bit of momentum heading into a bit of a tough next game.
Yeah, we shall see. Sean, how are you getting on?
Yeah, no, I'm very good. Thanks, Murray. Look at obviously Ireland played Italy today, and we got the win. And I'm sure there'll be a lot more talking points more than that when we get onto it. But no, look, happy that we got the win, and I'm not so bad. So, how are you, Murray?
Well, I'm not as happy as you boys, but that's fine. We'll dive straight into it. Scotland versus France, Old Alliance Cup at Murrayfield. By the way, Sean, you were right about the French fans. They are wild. Like I had to keep reassuring myself. It wasn't Edinburgh. It wasn't in Paris. They were loud. They were rowdy. They were right up for it. And France are going to win the Grand Slam. Absolutely, they were untouchable. I mean, the man in front of Kyle that sits in front of me, Harlem Globetrotters-esque from France. Scotland were their own enemies at some points in the game. I mean, letting DuPont run basically the length of the pitch in the first 5 minutes. Chris Harris having an absolute melt when there was a dodgy kick and he put his hand out as a natural reaction. So then France got the ball back. Duhan van der Merwe butterfingers just because he wasn't ready, and of course Stuart Hogg bringing back the tape from Ireland a few years ago. And yeah, on the plus side, Rory Darge, absolutely fantastic first start for Scotland. Didn't look out of place at all, and he's definitely one to watch going forward. Massive shout out to some previous guests we've had on the show. Jamie Hodgson getting his first Six Nations match for Scotland, and Andy Christie making his full Scotland debut. So well done, lads. But yeah, wasn't our day. France is too strong across the board. Yeah, well done, France. Blah, blah, blah. And shout out to the lovely Frenchman at the end, who we spoke about for about 5 minutes. We swapped tops, and I walked home with this bad boy. So, merci.
Well, the question is,
go on then.
So I was going to say, which jersey did he get, Murray? Which Scotland jersey?
Right. So traditionally, I usually wear like an older jersey as a base layer.
Yeah.
This time I didn't, so you got my old Scotland fleece.
Okay.
Fair trade. Yeah.
I was about to say, Scotland, what's that, 2007, 2008? It's definitely probably one of my more like wanted ones in my collection. So I've got France 2011 from the World Cup, but that 2007 one is c'est magnifique.
Yes. Oui. Any questions?
Apart from French goes to this, but
any questions on the game in hand?
Sean, you have any?
Yeah, I suppose my kind of question. I'll follow it up with an observation first. One thing I noticed from France is that I think they're far superior than all of the other teams in terms of their skill level. I think, especially one kind of more of a specific part of their skill is for me is keeping the ball alive. They're just so good at it. I mean, like, you know, the way you look at like kind of teams who are traditionally known to do it, like Fiji, they often have a lot of knock-ons. Well, not a lot, but obviously it's natural. Like when you're throwing keeping the ball alive that much, you're going to have knock-ons. But the way France did it, they seem to have very few knock-ons, and like their hands were just excellent on the receiving end. And I think seems hard to stop. Did it feel like a bit like that for you, Murray, when you were there? Like that, it was kind of like a bit unstoppable at times.
In the second half, yeah, absolutely. I mean, the first try in the second half, it started angering me. There was a chip and chase. Hogg had it. Duhan was right up Hogg's arse. I'm like, right, somebody just claim it. Like, you would know yourselves. Make a call. The other one drops back. Neither of them called for it. clashed into each other, the ball bounced, and big bad Jonathan Dante gets an easy walk in. You hate to see it, but yeah. And you know what? You made Damien Pinot look really good as well, which is not okay in my books.
Well, looks like Pop wouldn't make it into a fast flowing rugby team with the way that he handles the ball. But I think what I want to ask is basically, do you think France is probably one of the most well balanced teams? I think most of what we mentioned is in their backs. They're Dupont, Ontamac, Fiku, Penaud. Do you think they're a completely just well balanced team? They've got the same quality in the forwards that they do in the back line.
Absolutely. I mean, I actually forgot Julian Marchand started the game and Pietro Malvaco came off the bench. So when I heard it, I was like, oh God, it makes no difference. They're that good. And Cameron Woki, we've mentioned him a good few times. He is going to be special. And the one that I deem as the one that got away, Gregory Aldrit, magnifique. Simple, but yeah, France just far too strong. Scotland didn't help themselves. We move on.
I think my next question as well is wait, who do France have next? It's Wales, isn't it?
Wales away and Cardiff.
Wales away. Do you think that France are basically just at this point unstoppable? Obviously, Scotland at Murrayfield has been a bit of a bogey for them in recent years. Do you think they can overcome, basically the Dragon's Den?
Yeah, I really do. I know the Dragon's Den is no easy feat. It's very hard to do, regardless of the team they put out. But I think the problems France had last year, they've clamped down on that, and they're not just there. They're not just looking to be the hosts of the World Cup next year. They're out to be, we're going to win it in our own backyard, basically. So, yeah.
Murray, I was just going to kind of ask from a Scottish point of view, what do you think was kind of the bigger issue overall in the game? Do you think that not taking opportunities in attack, or more kind of just the defense just not up to scratch to be able to stop France, or maybe a bit of both? But which do you think was more of an issue for Scotland?
Probably communication was our big issue. There was times that we were attacking, and I'm like, okay, getting the ball rolling, it's going nice, and then normally how we play, something magic would happen, and just didn't. And then I had people asking me, if Hogg had caught the ball, do you think that would have turned the game on its head? I don't think so. The way that second half went, I don't. But I don't know. I think there's a lot to work on in the team, and the team that they've got now, they'll definitely have a lot and fix that going forward, because we've got Italy next as well. So yeah.
Just one more question. Do you think France are going to peak too early? Do you think that this is their peak? Do you think that maybe next year they kind of basically just can't overcome it, and basically just shot themselves in the foot going into their home World Cup?
It's hard to say, because we always talk about peaking too early when it comes to Ireland. Sorry, Sean. But
quarterfinal, quarterfinal dumps, and then that's just it.
Not next year.
Yeah, next year. We'll get into that. Plenty of time. It's hard to say with France, because obviously France under 20s are doing so well at the moment as well. So you're constantly getting that, those top players in, and a brilliant setup from the looks of it. So I'll say no. I'll say they've not peaked too early.
That's fair enough then.
But we go on to England against Wales, Harv.
Right, England versus Wales. Apart from maybe Scotland, this is the second match I want to win the most in the Six Nations, purely for bragging rights.
You won that one, so it's all good.
But anyway, going on to the game, I think again the first half was pretty dominant. I do think obviously England were basically just in cruise control at that point. Marcus Smith slotted away 4 penalties. Liam Williams obviously got the yellow card. I'm pretty sure there were 4 first half subs for Wales as well. You know, and to be honest, I didn't watch the first half, so you know, God knows what that was all about. But that's basically what I have to say in terms of basically in terms of the first half. I think for the second half, however, you know, Wales really did mount a comeback, and with the amount of exciting rugby that Wales play, I was scared of it. I knew something like that would happen. Luckily, we stayed on and obviously got the win in the end. But I did in my heart in my mouth. Towards the end, I was absolutely shitting myself. But we did it. Fair enough. I think one thing I have to take away from it. I think England were very good, but I do think that Wales may have gifted us some penalties. I mean, again, Marcus Smith had seven place kicks from penalties. He missed one, but scored 6 of them. You know, and just a team can't give away that many penalty kicks in a game realistically, because you know, when you've got a kicker like Marcus Smith, he can just pile on points. So I think that's something to do with that's something to deal with in the Welsh camp. But it feels nice knowing that they've got the bad discipline, not us this year. So I'd like to congratulate the England team on that. I think also just to touch on as well, I do think that 2 monster players for us, Marcus Smith and Maro Itoje, they really shone through. But I was discussing this earlier. Obviously, as good as Marcus Smith is, and as good as Maro Itoje is, even I don't know whether to say that Maro Itoje is kind of carrying our whole second row, because you know, when he starts in the 5 or 4 jersey, it's, you know, whoever else is always a massive question, because you know, you think back in the last 5 years, maybe we've had about 5 or 6 different names all vying for that jersey. You know, Johnny Hill, Joe Launchbury, Charlie Ewells, Nick Ezike. Yeah, they've all really been looking for it. So I think if we're talking about in terms of selection and in terms of just finding someone to kind of fit that role, I think we have got to really look for it, because Maro Itoje is an absolute monster. His work rate is unreal. You know, he's amazing at the breakdowns. He's amazing in defence. But ultimately, he is kind of taking the credit for the whole second row. He is almost playing as 2 second rows, which is maybe why I haven't rated any other England second row, purely because Maro's basically just stealing their job.
Fair enough.
But I think at the end of the day, moving back onto the game, I think England did enough to get themselves over the line. I don't think it was the greatest win, but you know, a win's a win. 4 points is 4 points. Helps us in the championship. So 100%. I'm happy. I'm happy with it, and obviously I've got bragging rights over our good friend Simeon, so that's always a plus.
Yeah, that's fair. Where does Ben Youngs rank amongst the all-time greats for England now? Because he is now the most capped England player of all time with 115.
I'd say I still rate him very highly. You know, as someone who's been playing scrum half this season, Ben Youngs has definitely been one of the players I've been watching more. He is incredible. He is an incredible player, and especially throughout you know, history. To think that, you know, he scored one of his more iconic tries for England was how many years ago? 11 years ago in the 2011 World Cup, which is mental to think I was only about, you know, 5, 6, 7 that time. Yeah, which almost shows his longevity, and I think that's probably what's been keeping him over the line. You know, Ben Youngs is one of the England greats, and I think a lot of people will miss him when he's gone. I feel like he's one of those players where you can't fully appreciate him until, you know, there's no more Ben Youngs. So, you know, obviously I'm happy. I'm happy while he's here, but I think if you ask me this conversation maybe in 3 years' time, he's probably going to be done with rugby. If you ask me again in 3 years' time, I'd probably say he's very much up there with the all-time greats.
Fair enough. Do you think Wales were almost back to their best with like Tulipi Faletau back in the mix, and even Alex Cuthbert, because he was immense during the first half.
It's interesting because Faletau, when I was looking at the Welsh pack, my only real like two names of note were Tame Basham and Faletau. But I knew to myself that Faletau obviously been out for a while of injury. I probably thought he was going to get about one half, but he played the full 80. He was an absolute workhorse. So it was absolutely immense. Whereas if Wales are back to their best, I wouldn't say back to their like best. I think they're still. I think what's different between the England transition and the Wales transition is England are basically just planting new seeds, and Wales are basically just trying to fit in the puzzle pieces and the missing gaps. If you get my analogies, basically, I think Wales are just basically just having a reshuffle, finding what's out. Obviously, they've been plagued by injury, but I think the way that Wales played yesterday was immense. So I've got to hand them.
Well, that's fair enough. Sean, you got any?
Yeah, this is going to come off as a bit loaded, but I'm I'm going to get. Don't worry, there will a question will follow, and hopefully should be related to what I'm about to say.
Tired, mate, please.
And just to preface what I'm going to say, this is kind of just my opinion, but I will follow it up with a question on what your opinion on it is. My thoughts watching England specifically, especially their attack yesterday, was that it was fairly boring to watch. I felt like that their attack didn't have a lot of. Look, I'm sorry, Harry, but I felt their attack wasn't very.
Shoot me, it's all good.
No, but genuinely, I wish I could say it differently, but like their attack seemed very kind of one-dimensional. Not that I'm saying it's a bad thing. I mean, they won the game in the end. And I know that boring or not doesn't matter. It's all about just getting results, and they got results. They kicked their penalties. Marcus Smith was brilliant on that front. Like their game management worked. But I know that Eddie Jones, he's open in the media about being very focused on getting results in the World Cup. Do you think, this is the first part of the question, do you think that maybe he's not showing his full hand in a sense, like as a Six Nations? And then with following up with that, do you think England, do you find England personally boring as an England fan?
As for your first question, like, is he playing his full hand? I obviously think that injuries play a big part in it. To think that we've been forced mainly to play a lot of young lads who they've been deserving the England Cup call up for quite a while, but the squad depth I'd say could be a lot deeper. If we had mainly our full talent. I mean, to be honest, like 4 of our first choice 12s are out with injury, which I just think at the end of the day, like, the 12 jersey is really up for grabs at the moment. But I think we are yet to see probably the best from England, and I think that this year is maybe just an experimentational year going into next year. Definitely just trying out some new talent on a bigger stage. Obviously, he tried them out during the summer, kind of filtered them in during the autumn. I think on a stage like the Six Nations, it's usually, it's really a good place to sort of get the best out of the international young talent. But I think, again, let's just look at it in one way. Like, we're gonna hopefully, come next year Six Nations, we should have a fairly deep squad with some of the young and old talent. And basically, I'm just hoping that Eddie can spice it up, just get a little bit of everything in. In terms of anything the boring, yesterday was a bit different. I think with Wales. Wales probably were the best team sort of on the pitch, in my opinion. Obviously they lost, and I think that might be purely down to discipline. Again, as I said, they can't just give away 7 kickable penalties. But I don't know. I think as an England fan, I don't think England are truly boring. I do think that, give us a fully loaded squad and we can make something happen. We've got some really exciting players. We've got, Marcus Smith is a really exciting young playmaker. If we play someone like Rafi Quirk at 9 even, he's a very exciting creating scrum half. Tuilagi and Slade, I think, is probably our best centre combo. Having someone in like maybe Adam Radwan, I think Jack Noel gives a very different interpretation of wings, something we definitely don't have enough of. You know, Freddie Stewart is incredible. I honestly just want to put that out there. He's an incredible man. I don't think we're boring, but I do think that yesterday was maybe just a bit of a full showing.
Yeah, that makes sense. Also, just last question for me as well is after kind of, I know as you said, it's only one result it's only a small sample size of what England are potentially capable of. But let's say just considering the performance and maybe the result, you even said it there that you thought Wales were the better team overall. Are you maybe more or less confident going into the game with France, considering the performance and the result against Wales? And the final weekend, obviously, against France.
France, to be honest, I've kind of given up on. If we're going to be like brutally honest, I've kind of given up on France. You know, obviously Ireland will be you know our biggest test yet. I think in the Six Nations this year. But I do think with home advantage we do have the chance to make it tight.
Yeah.
But France, I think it's just going to be a bit too far out of our reach. That's my brutal honest opinion.
Yeah, that was very fair. Yeah.
But anyway, on to our opponents for next round. Ireland versus Italy. Sean, take it away.
Yeah, just focusing kind of on the whole Irish performance first before we get into the nitty gritty of what happened. Yeah. I think Ireland were a little bit inaccurate at times. I think Ireland will probably be a little bit disappointed in kind of the period, especially directly following the red card, especially when we had a 2-man advantage, and maybe 15 minutes into the second half. That kind of period was very lulled. Probably, I mean, look, we did score 2 tries, was it before half time? But I think I read somewhere that it was the best away performance by Italy against Ireland since 2014 in terms of the result. Like, it was the smallest margin. So I think, and you consider that Ireland had a 2-man advantage. I mean, I know it's only one small thing, but Ireland were a little bit I think it kind of looked a little bit shell shocked. They had big words. I think they had so much space. They knew there was always so much space that they were nearly getting rid of the space by trying to just throw it wide. And Italy were drifting very well, whereas I think we probably should have gone up the middle a bit more and then went wide. It's just a small thing, and I think it's I know we've had this conversation a million times before, but when Sexton came on, he was brilliant. The structure he gave was excellent, and it's amazing to watch. He literally is the Tom Brady of rugby. It's amazing, but at the same time, Carberry was good, but he wasn't excellent. And in a game against Italy, you kind of need to be excellent. His place kicking was a bit off Carberry's today, and his game management was okay. But as I said, with the 2-man advantage, probably should have been better. But Sexton was brilliant. Josh Van der Fleer, absolutely deserving a man of the match. But look, at the end of the day, a 51-point win, you can't really be too negative. Despite a few players being a little bit quieter than normal, a win is a win. We have the full points, however it is, full bonus point win. Italy didn't score a try, so I think you can't be too aggrieved. I feel sorry for Italy. I mean, with the whole, if we want to get onto that now, with the whole referee thing.
Yeah, go on. Let's make it spicy.
Yeah, we can each have our own input on this, but I'll give a quick description of what happened for the viewers. So basically, Italy's hooker broke his arm in the first few minutes and had to go off. And then 10 or 15 minutes later, the sub hooker, he got red carded. I think it was a fair red card. I think he got red carded, and then because of the law, I don't know what the exact name of the law or what number it is. Law 3 point something. Yeah, 3.2.
I've been looking for the whole rule book for that one.
Yeah, so basically he had to they had to reduce a player when it came to scrums. They had to drop an extra player, and the reason behind it is so that teams don't take advantage of the fact that even let's say, forget that there was a red card, if two front row players were injured, that you could just go to contested scrums for the rest of the game. So if you're getting pummeled in the scrum, you're guaranteed possession every time. And I mean, when you consider it, it kind of makes sense. But in the context of this game, I mean, literally, there was no hope for Italy. I mean, even 1-man disadvantage was a big ask for Italy, but 2 men, I mean, that was a lot. And then obviously
by the end of the game.
exactly, with the yellow card. So, I mean, it was impossible. Like, I mean, people say red cards ruin games, but then when you add on another player had to go off at the same time just for that one red card, it's a bit unfair. So, I'd like to hear your thoughts on that, lads.
I think for me, like,
sorry.
I think for me, like, you know, I think we can all relate in the fact that, you know, we were completely confused knowing that 13 men had to be on the field. You know, and I think after we got to half time and Brian Driscoll, he explained it perfectly. Don't get me wrong, I think he did really well. But I also do think that it might have been the referee's duty to communicate it better with the players, and maybe the commentator's duty to commentate to basically just tell us better as the fans. You know, because I saw these little tables and grids put up by Murray Kinsella, but at the end of the day, like, it doesn't tell us sort of why, it just tells us what, basically. And Brian O'Driscoll explained it perfectly. It's basically so you don't have, it's basically just to give Ireland the advantage back in the forwards, obviously because they're not getting tired, they're not tiring bodies out in scrums, basically. I don't know, I just think, as well as the referee did today, and fair enough to him, like, he did a good shift. I do think that there could have been better communication between him and the players, basically just as to why, you know, obviously Italy's captain was quite vocally upset about it. But I think, like, again, fair enough, he had every right to be. But I don't know, I think the fact that sort of no one knew about this rule, it was basically unheard of, and basically no one even stopped to just let us know what and why. I think that's basically the main reason I'm upset with it. But the law's in place for a reason. But
yeah, actually, Murray, sorry, just before you go on as well, I just want to say, as Harvey mentioned, I thought the referee had a pretty good game. I thought he was very good for a young referee. I thought he, like, apart from the communication thing, which also wasn't kind of his fault, because he was kind of losing either way, because he was going to have to deliver bad news to Lamaro, even if he could explain it properly. So I just felt he had a very good game. So I know Simeon will be proud of that, because he's friends with him on Facebook actually, or something. So
it's technically Georgia's debut in the Six Nations. So
yeah, so fair play to Nika Amashikeli, if I'm saying that right. Probably not, but fair play to him.
His Georgian knowledge is amazing. That's why.
I mean, at least one ref did well this weekend, for the most part. But no, I think like you said, Harv, that it's hard for the referee to, because all I heard when I was watching it was Michelle Amaro was like, so we've lost a man, and now you're asking me to lose another man and play the whole game with 13. And the ref basically just said, yeah, that's the law. And there was like no explanation. I'm like, go and run that by me, please, because I'm missing a bit. And then obviously me and you were speaking throughout the game, Harv, pretty much like justice for Italy the whole time we were talking. But
yeah, I feel bad for Italy. Basically, you know, I've kind of adopted them as a second nation, to be honest. You know, I of course I'd love to see. I would love to see Italy win a game, and obviously I was kind of backing Italy a little bit here, but I don't know. I do think that for as well as they've been playing, a result like this, I think is a little bit overshadowed with slight unfair. Obviously, you know, a red card's a red card, and 14 men is the punishment you pay for it. But you know, to be down to 12 men at the end of the game, you know, you're three men down. Sorry. You know, against a team that, to be honest, are much better than you, is almost just completely rampant. And I don't think we've seen, you know, anything that destructive in quite a while.
Yeah, it must be demoralizing, like, for a team like Italy, who are, as you said, like they're not at the same strength as Ireland. Like, you know, you lose one player is demoralizing enough, but then you have to lose two just because of that one act. That must be fairly gutting on the pitch.
But even so, I you know, to say that they are improving, and I have said that they are improving, but you know, it kind of almost just puts that to nothing in this game.
Yeah.
But yeah.
It's always an Italy game where there's a rule that just comes up that no one knows. Isn't it? It's always an Italian game.
I feel like Italy are just like, you know, they've got like some mics in their ears and they're just asking to exploit like different laws. And it's just like, exactly. You tell the fans what this one means.
But I mean, Now we have got,
Starting that with a microphone or something like that. It's just
now we have got the sad stat of it has been 2,556 days since Italy last won the Six Nations. Fucking hell.
Yeah.
and they're gonna beat Wales.
Yes.
Seems like
Viva
they
la
do.
spaghetti.
I used to hope so anyway.
Yeah, I hope so.
I've made a bet with someone. I've made a bet with someone over it, so I can't really lose it now.
Good.
I mean, you've already lost a bet this year anyway, so it's fine.
At least the camera wasn't on at that point, so no one had to see it.
I've always got the picture though. It's all good.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway, there has been other news around the world of rugby away from the Six Nations. Still sticking with internationals, but we go to the Women's World Cup qualifier. The last game, one team left to get in, and it's Scotland!
Woo!
Scotland's women absolutely dominant over Colombia, 59 points to 3. What an effort. Well done to Helen Nelson, Lisa Thompson, Ronna Lloyd. I could go on, but well done to the ladies. They've done bloody well, and they've got a whole country crowd. Actually, before we go any further, fair play to them, because they played, I think it was Friday, 3 p.m. here in Dubai, like 3 p.m. time here in Dubai. They then got on a flight to Glasgow, on a bus to Edinburgh, and they were at Murrayfield yesterday at half-time doing a lap of honour.
Fair play to them. I think,
Yeah,
to be honest, I think it's a good advert for the women's game as well in Scotland, where obviously the women's Six Nations is probably a larger gap than the men's. Where you've got your England, your Italy's, and your France's and the women's, who are basically sort of your top threes every year, and Wales, Ireland, and Scotland have kind of been left for dust in the women's game. But I think it's a really good advert as well, and probably will help Scottish rugby in the women's game. But yeah, just to get World Cup experience is just immense anyway. So well done to the girls.
Yeah, first time in 12 years.
Oh wow,
Unreal. I'm telling you, I didn't know that until after the game. I was like, that can't be right. But yeah, there you go.
Well, I'm going to move on to something, still sticking with this kind of World Cup qualification theme. The Rugby Europe Championship, obviously, some know it as like the second tier of the Six Nations. Basically, to qualify for the Rugby World Cup in the Rugby Europe Championship, the top two go into the World Cup, and the third goes into the qualifier in the European qualifiers. But obviously, we know that in the real world, politically, Russia and Ukraine are having a bit of a spat at the moment, and obviously this means that Russia were not able to play against Georgia this week. I'm pretty sure the game was in Russia. Just a quick answer from you lads. I just want to ask you: do you think it's unfair on Russian rugby to be dragged into this?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm pretty sure with football, FIFA are still letting the football team play just without flags, anthems, and badges.
But nobody's wanting to play them. There's already been a few games like, I'm not doing it.
But I also think that, they're entering themselves as the Russian Football Union instead of just Russia.
Yeah.
So I think if rugby follows the same steps, sort of entering themselves as a separate union, not as a federation, it might make a bit more sense. It might sort of just separate them from, basically just disassociate them with what's going on at the moment in the real world.
It's kind of like the Olympics as well, isn't it? Because Russia got banned and it was
Russian Olympic Committee.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is just my answer though. Do you think it's unfair that the players obviously want to represent their country? They want to qualify for the World Cup. Do you think it's unfair? Do you think they're just being dragged into this and basically just not being allowed to play like everyone else?
Yeah, I think they just get labelled with the same stick, really. So yeah, not great.
Yeah,
but if we're talking about
sorry, I think it is unfair on like the players. Obviously, it's not their doing that. All this politics is going on, and they have to suffer for it. Like, I don't think kicking a team out of a competition just because they are associated with their country is a very fair way of doing it. It's not fair on them either. But like the solution that you said of moving away from a federation, it probably sounds like a good solution.
That's fair enough. Obviously, the Rugby Europe Championship is taking place. Spain with a quite convincing win over Romania today, and Portugal absolutely thrashing the Netherlands. So I think Portugal and Georgia are main two, basically just to go through to the World Cup. It'll be exciting to see Portugal again, I think.
I need a Portugal top.
I know you can get one, but I don't know if you want to fork out 71 quid. So
nah, I'm all right.
nah, we're all good.
There's more positive news.
Go on.
So, Super Rugby Pacific, we're in week 2, proper into the tournament now. Blues versus Hurricanes. Now, it was Roger Tuivasa-Sheck's debut. I think he did all right, quite well. Didn't score, but did the job. Blues were winning 32-14 with 10 minutes to go. Full time, Blues 32, Hurricanes 33. Bloody hell, what a game.
What a finish. Ardi Savia.
Yeah, Ardi Savia. Leading from the front, Captain Marvel, you name it. He is fantastic. But the man that stole all the thunder this week, breakthrough player of the year, Will Jordan. Now, I don't know if you boys have seen it, but his try against the Highlanders, it was a cheat code. He got a cheeky little offload from George Bridge, passed 2 defenders with ease, stepped the third, the fourth held on to him, and the legs just started pumping, and he got over the try line. I'm like, how? How?
He is incredible, though. He's an absolutely incredible fella. It's just beautiful to watch him play, even.
Watch him watch.
I'll quickly just go back to international rugby, and something I think we forgot to mention last week. Obviously, there was talk earlier this month about a certain nation replacing Italy in the Six Nations. However, I see Six Nations denied any sort of movement to their shareholders. South Africa in, Italy out. No. How strongly are your guys' opinions about this, basically?
Very.
Don't do it. It's quite maybe a selfish reason, but I'd rather spend £30 on a Ryanair flight to Rome than spend $3,000 on a flight to Johannesburg.
Oh, 100% same, because Rome is. I do think that Rome is probably one of the best away days, in my opinion, anyway.
This is nothing against South Africa. I'd still like to go, but
just, I think for me, like, because the Six Nations has always been, classic, the European talents, basically.
Yeah.
Obviously the home nations plus France and Italy. I think obviously the main driving force of this is probably the South African teams in the URC. I never really fancied that idea in the first place. But obviously the URC is now South Africans basically just their main league. Yeah. So I don't know. I think it's difficult, but I don't know. But to have South Africa in the Six Nations, it just wouldn't feel proper anymore. I don't reckon.
No. Just on that for me as well. I completely agree with you as well about the Six Nations, the whole European thing. But I also look at it from another angle as well. I consider the World Cup and the World Cup knockout stage, and I think about the semi-finals and how many teams realistically have a decent chance of making the semi-finals. I know Ireland are typically not in that, but for the sake of just for argument's sake, I think there are only realistically about 7 or 8 teams who realistically every World Cup have a chance of making it to the semi-finals, and I think that includes the 5 teams from excluding Italy, unfortunately, from the Six Nations. Sorry, Harvey, 5 teams from the Six Nations. Obviously, New Zealand, Australia, and South Africa. And then, I think it's special in the World Cup the fact that you don't really play those 3 teams that often. Like, you play them in the World Cup, they're massive games. You play them in November internationals, they're good games, they're competitive, but they're not part of a competition. And whereas if South Africa moved to the Six Nations, you're just kind of getting rid of that, you're increasing familiarity, and you're getting rid of that kind of what's seldom is wonderful kind of thing. You're going to be playing them more often.
Even so, playing, teams in the World Cup, that almost feels special in itself, right? I'm pretty sure you guys can relate when Ireland and Scotland played last World Cup. Kind of
and next World Cup as well.
Kind of felt a bit of a bigger game, only because you have to play each other every year it's just another reason for bragging rights, basically.
Yeah.
Because basically every game in the Six Nations is a rivalry. You've got to look at it like that. All these teams are so close. Well, at least for England it is, because everyone hates us. But because everyone's just sort of so close, everything is a rivalry. But even with these teams, like you just said, these games don't come around often, so you do treat them a bit more. I remember, obviously, I remember last year's World Cup, not last year's, 2019's last World Cup. Obviously, I remember the semi-final against New Zealand, waking up for that, and again, we don't play New Zealand very often. We play them once every about 3-4 years in autumn internationals, and then we played them in the World Cup, and that was just a special match in itself. It's one that's always going to be in my heart. But I think mainly because we beat New Zealand, a team that basically just sort of looked unreachable, and especially because we don't get to play them very often, that's why it became special. So I think obviously if South Africa joined, it would increase the familiarity. But I do have to say I would feel sorry for Italy, mainly because they are shareholders. They are improving the under-20 side massively as well. And to be honest, you basically just kill off Italian rugby if South Africa joined.
Yeah. Sticking with what you said there about early improving. Obviously, when the news broke, we all did videos on the matter. Somebody, I think I pinned the comment on my video. Somebody made a very good point. So obviously, way back when, it used to just be the 4 home nations. And then 1910 or something, France got added. France didn't win a game until 1923. So that's 13 years. They didn't win their first title until 1950 something. So, yeah.
It does take time, and time to improve. Italy are a nation that's fairly new to rugby, if you think about it. They joined in 2000, and they've had 11 wins in their 20 years. But you think about how big those wins were to them. I'm pretty sure their first win came against Wales in 2000.
No, they beat 5 Nations champions. Us, because of course they beat us.
The last game they beat you as well.
That's what I mean.
So I just think it'd be unfair on Italy if they were basically unfairly knocked out for financial reasons. But I just want to touch on one thing. There was talk in the week about Premiership Rugby B teams joining the Championship, which then changed to there's going to be a mini league or a cup competition that is going to be Championship teams plus Premiership B teams. Lads, do you think it's good for the development of rugby, or do you think it's just a complete nonsense?
I think it's good for especially if you could make it more like the younger players, not just not like an A team. I know that's because it's not technically the first team. Because I'm sure I've seen that a few times. Like you see, like when Saracens were in the Championship
versus the British and Irish Lions, they just played the whole squad.
Like when Saracens were in the Championship, and they were against like Rotherham, and you've got Sean Maitland starting on the wing. I'm like, does Sean Maitland need that?
Exactly. They're playing the likes of Doncaster, Nottingham, Ampthill, Bedford Blues.
Give the younger lads a chance.
I'm pretty sure Bedford Blues, they've got no stands, and you've got to walk through a forest to get to the ground.
Oh, sign me up.
So, I mean, this is the quality of rugby they're playing. All I'm saying is, if you want to improve rugby lower down the English system, I'd say move. Basically just work around the Six Nations, include a break basically when the Six Nations isn't on. That means there's no real need to have that deeper squad. You can loan players out, you can sell players to Championship squads. That helps them. It narrows the gap. Bish bash bosh. You're getting yourself a more competitive rugby system.
That's it. I mean, definitely lots to talk about and things to look forward to, but that's us. We go back to club rugby again next week. It's the final break of the Six Nations, and then it's full speed ahead again. But we'll be back covering URC, Prem, Super Rugby, Top 14, and Sean's going to have funny looks. It's got to be the MLR.
Yeah, can I just briefly have a quick mention on MLR, and actually something really quickly on the top 14 as well. Just on the top 14, something that it's only a small thing that's fresh in is that Toulouse have ended their 6-game losing streak. The champions, obviously, and the Champions Cup champions. So they beat Bordeaux by a point tonight. Actually, the game only finished about half an hour ago. 12-11. Bordeaux are top of the table. Toulouse are 7th, actually, which is fairly low by their standards. And yeah, Toulon are actually, I think they're one place off relegation, so they're still as crap as ever.
Yeah, we were mentioning that last week. That is poor by their stats.
It is. And then also just MLR really quickly. The Dallas Jackals, obviously, they're a new franchise in Major League Rugby this season. Obviously, they were meant to join last year. They was put back due to like financial constraints, readiness constraints, whatever you want to say. They had their first home game last week against the Houston Sabercats. It was decided at the death, 38-33. Houston won it at the end. But I think from what I heard, it was the highest attendance of a home team in their first game of the season, if that makes sense, with 3,500, which isn't bad. I mean, I know the Premiership, when teams started out in the Premiership, they had similar attendances. So, I mean, I think that's only up from here for Major League Rugby, hopefully.
Yeah, fair enough. I can just see you grinning because the MLR's back as well, Sean, so we're glad that you're happy.
He's a happy boy.
Yeah, I am happy. A happy boy here.
Anyway, this has been Rugby Connection. Be sure to go and subscribe to our channel on YouTube. I think you follow us on Spotify. Click the notification bar. Get the notifications for new episodes and new interviews, because we're going to be bombarding you with a lot of stuff in the next few weeks. But yeah, follow, like, share, get the word out there. But we will definitely see you next time on Rugby Connection.